A normal office worker, focused solely on her career and dismissive of romance. Never imagined her life would take a turn straight out of a storybook. She had always thought love and fairy tale endings were trivial until one evening, leaving the office later than usual, she became the victim of a carjacking. The gun pressed to her head, her heart raced, and under the pressure, she lost control of her car. In a blur of metal and screeching tires, the vehicle collided with a truck. When she came to, she wasn't in the hospital or in her own body. Instead, she had woken up as Madeline Rosehart, a secondary character in a romance novel she had never read. Blood trickled from her mouth, and as she slowly regained awareness, a blonde-haired man burst in, shouting for someone named Torsten. Confused and shaken, she reflected that if she had known the story, perhaps this fate could have been avoided. Her thoughts were interrupted by the presence of a striking young man with dark hair and piercing purple eyes. A lock of hair falling to the tip of his nose, small moles dotting his face. His blank stare seemed to pierce through her, and a single word hovered in her mind. "Dear?" A few months earlier, in the comfort of her bedroom, a lady-in-waiting named Annie gently knocked on her door, waking Madeline for the day's events. The weight of the memories or, perhaps the dreams of her new life pressed on her mind. Ever since waking as Madeline Rosehart, fragments of the girl's past, her personality, the people around her, and pieces of her noble upbringing flooded her thoughts, leaving her with more questions than answers. She struggled to adjust to this inherited life of nobility while still remembering the ordinary woman she had been. Two ladies-in-waiting helped her prepare for the day, assisting with her dress and hair. While pampering was pleasant, it was overshadowed by the looming engagement that awaited her. One of the ladies, Maria, gushed about the virtues of Prince Elijah, someone who had known Madeline since childhood and seemed the perfect match. Madeline's mind flinched at the thought, recalling fleeting images of negotiations, childhood friends, and a boy she couldn't quite place. Yet the rumors of Duke Icewood, the man she was actually promised to, painted a starkly different picture. A ruthless soldier, a violent and merciless figure, feared for his cruelty on the battlefield. Madeline resolved quietly that she would not submit willingly to this arranged marriage. Later that day, she arrived at the Duchess Campbell Manor for the engagement ceremony, accompanied by her attendants. Veiled and composed in her light blue dress, she reflected on the necessity of witnesses given the Duke's notorious reputation. Despite the societal expectations and the long-arranged agreement between their families, she had no intention of marrying a man she barely knew. Holding a bouquet of red roses, she approached the ceremony, aware of every gaze and whisper surrounding her. The Duke, dark-haired and imposing, called out to her, his presence commanding and his expression unreadable as he reached out suddenly, grabbing her hand. Shocked, a voice called out her name, but before she could react, he guided her firmly away. A sharp sound echoed in the room, followed by the slam of his hand against the wall beside her head, trapping her in place. He sneered, almost mocking, as he spoke her name, calling it a joke. Then came a pause, a moment of quiet tension, before he asked if she remembered him. Madeline's confusion deepened. She didn't recognize him, couldn't place him, but the familiarity in his voice and presence was unnerving. He leaned closer, brushing her hair aside, and though she protested, he continued, noting that despite their brief acquaintance, he had no trouble recognizing her. Madeline narrows her eyes, frowning as she studies him. He's uncomfortably close, too tactile for a stranger. And for a moment, she wonders if he might be one of Madeline Rosehart's old lovers. A slow smirk spreads across his face, and he asks if she's done staring. She notices the small marks on his face and the pale purple of his gaze. Recognition struck her abruptly. This was the man with the gun before the car accident, the one responsible for her sudden plunge into this strange world. Fragments of shattered mirrors appear, reflecting pieces of their past and present lives, blurring the line between reality and fiction. Madeline was in disbelief, wondering if they were both hallucinating at the same time. But he cut her short, insisting this was no trick of the mind. His hand brushed near her lips, taunting her with the idea of living inside some romance novel. Flustered, Madeline tries to assert herself, warning him to remove his hand and insisting his words made no sense. But he cuts her off, revealing the shocking truth. The Two-Faced Prince and I, which is the title of the very novel she now inhabited, and the fact that if she did not believe him, they would both die. The gravity of their situation hung heavy as they faced each other. Two individuals caught between worlds, bound by a story neither fully understood. At Campbell Manor, a carriage stands waiting at the entrance. A uniformed servant salutes a blond man, but before his face is shown, the scene shifts. Inside, Torsten has Madeline pinned against the massive door. She's stunned by his earlier words, questioning what he meant about a two-faced prince and a novel. Her glare sharpens as she repeats his claim in disbelief. "We're both going to die." Torsten lowers his hand and explains. They aren't who they thought they were. Instead, they've awakened inside a romance novel as minor characters: Madeline, the childhood friend who gets murdered, and Torsten, the fool wrongly accused of the crime, sent to the battlefield to die in disgrace. Their roles are so small, he says. Their deaths barely fill a footnote. Images of their written fates flicker, their names scrawled in a book. Faceless portraits, arrows striking down Torsten's armored body. He scoffs bitterly at the idea of dying in such a meaningless way. Not for a story this foolish and shallow, built on ridiculous characters. Madeline struggles to grasp it. Murder, war, death, none of it sounds like the romance novels she's heard of. Then again, she never had time for books or romance in her past life. She'd been career-driven, pragmatic, never once interested in love. Even as a teenager, she had dismissed romance while her classmates gushed around her. Torsten brings her back to the present. Her death, he explains, triggers his own, which means her survival is tied to his. Only he knows the story's events, so if she wants to live, she'll have to trust him. Madeline's eyes narrow. Trust him? She jabs a finger at him, furious. This was the same man who once hijacked her car and held her at gunpoint. But Torsten only smirks, catching her hand with deliberate ease. With mocking charm, he reminds her that her reckless driving skills had caused the accident that tangled their fates together in the first place. He tilts her chin, closing the distance between them, his eyes glinting with amusement. Madeline shoves him back in fury, snapping that it was his gun that distracted her in the first place. She refuses to take the blame, and she refuses to let him call her darling. But Torsten isn't finished. Calmly, he tells her she'd better get used to it, because isn't that what fiancés call each other? The word leaves her stunned. Fiancés? Before she can respond, the door bursts open. Two ladies in waiting appear nearby. One visibly nervous and the other shivering slightly, adding to the tension of the moment. A black-haired man apologizes for failing to hold someone back. That someone steps forward asking why Torsten acted as he did, expecting a reasonable explanation. He is Elijah von Solaris, the Empire's second prince, with his sharp gaze fixed on Torsten as he formally addresses him as Lord Icewood. The truth hits Madeline like ice. Torsten is Duke Icewood himself, and the man standing before him is Prince Elijah. With a smile that hides sharp intent, Torsten greets the prince smoothly, covering the situation by claiming Madeline was simply nervous about their engagement. He grips her shoulders firmly, forcing her to play along. Madeline realizes she cannot move under his hold, and his grip seemed to warn her, "Don't even think about escaping." Elijah is not convinced. He remarks that such private meetings are improper for two unmarried nobles. Torsten brushes it off, reminding him that their engagement is happening today. His brother blurts out that Torsten had once sworn he'd rather throw himself off a cliff than get engaged. But Torsten silences him with a glare, and a faint smile curves on his lips. He coolly asks if they'd been looking for them, his hands still firm on Madeline's shoulders while she stares ahead, unimpressed. Throw himself off a cliff? She thinks, dryly. Leaning close to Madeline, Torsten whispers that she must follow his lead while staying quiet. She starts to reply, but he presses on, urging her to at least trust his instinct to survive, if nothing else. She hesitates, wondering if she can really trust the survival instincts of a thief. His smile lingers, unshaken. With that, he offers his arm, as though inviting her to play along. But for now, she stays quiet. The doors creak open before them, and together they step into the grand hall where whispers ripple through the gathered crowd. Guests murmur about the cold Duke of the North finally taking a fiancé, wondering if this was a matter of love or duty. Some pity Madeline, calling her a quiet, demure lady, the pride of her father, Baron Roseheart, and the only joy he has left after his wife's passing. Others speculate that Torsten had been forced into this match before being allowed back to the battlefield, warning that the Baron might yet change his mind. At the end of the hall, the second prince and a regal elder await them. Torsten halts briefly, reminding Madeline not to hesitate. She steadies herself, veil drawn and bouquet in hand, and replies firmly that she isn't hesitating, though she has terms. He prompts her to speak, and she lays them out one by one. If she is to believe this talk of a romance novel, Torsten must tell her everything she needs to survive. He agrees. They will remain engaged for no more than 2 years. He agrees again. And lastly, they will never marry. He responds with a blunt hell no, making it clear that marriage is not something he ever desires. She exhales, realizing that on this point she won't have to compromise. Steeling herself, she accepts their arrangement, her determination unwavering. With a final pointed jab, she mockingly calls him darling, emphasizing that while the deal is settled, her spirit remains unbowed. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe. And if you want the next part, comment down below. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.